The popular imagination often pictures ancient Egypt as a civilization obsessed with death, a land of grim priests, silent tombs, and endless lines of suffering people dragging stone across the sand for the vanity of distant kings. A place where life was merely endured so that death could be prepared for properly. It is an image that feels convincing, and it is, in almost every meaningful way, wrong. Ancient Egypt was not a culture in love with death. It was a culture deeply, unapologetically in love with life. So convinced of its value that it refused to believe life could ever truly end. To the Egyptians, existence was not divided neatly into now and after. Life was a single, continuous journey, and death was simply a doorway. Inconvenient, unavoidable, but hardly final. The afterlife was not imagined as some distant paradise, alien and unfamiliar, but as an eternal continuation of daily life on earth, perfected rather than replaced. And so, they lived. They lived fully, deliberately, as though every breath might echo into eternity. This belief shaped everything, from the grand monuments that still inspire wonder to the humblest home on the banks of the Nile. Slavery existed in Egypt, as it did in nearly every ancient society, but it was not the racialized, industrial system imagined by later traditions. Slaves were criminals, debtors, or prisoners taken in war. People believed to have forfeited their freedom through action or circumstance. Their lives were undeniably harsh, but they were not the foundation upon which Egypt's monuments were built. The pyramids, temples, and colossal statues that still dominate imagination were raised not by enslaved masses, but by paid Egyptian laborers. Skilled workers, artisans, engineers, and craftsmen who were housed, fed, and respected for their expertise. Many were masters of their trade. Their work was not a sentence, it was a profession. And make no mistake, these monuments were not celebrations of death. They were declarations that life mattered, that an individual's existence was significant enough to be remembered forever. For in Egypt, to be remembered was to live again, because life continued. And the afterlife was nothing without the living experience to mirror. Daily life in Egypt was filled not only with labor, but with leisure, celebration, sport, music, storytelling, friendship, and family. Egyptians read, played games, attended festivals, watched athletic contests, drank beer, danced, and argued, very much like people do now when survival is not immediately at stake. The world itself was understood as alive with unseen forces. Magic, Heka, was not superstition or illusion, but the fundamental energy that made existence possible. It predated the gods. It allowed the gods to act. It sustained creation itself. Magic was order. Magic was medicine. Magic was the quiet, unseen mechanism behind the universe. At the heart of that universe was Ma'at, harmony, balance, justice, and truth. The principle that held the cosmos together and gave human life its meaning. To live well was not to dominate others or accumulate excess, but to live in balance with the world and contribute to communal happiness. An ancient wisdom text advises simply, "Let your face shine during the time that you live." To shine was to live kindly, to lighten one's own heart and, by extension, the hearts of others. To let the world reflect the brightness of your spirit, even when the sun hid behind clouds, even when the Nile ran low or the sand stung against your skin. Egyptian society was rigidly structured, divided clearly into social classes that were believed to reflect divine order itself. The king stood at the top, not merely a ruler, but the intermediary between gods and people, charged with maintaining Ma'at across the land. Beneath him stood the vizier, the court, regional governors, military leaders, scribes, priests, and finally, the vast population of farmers and laborers who sustained everything else. Social mobility was rare, not because ambition was punished, but because the system itself was believed to be perfect. One did not challenge divine order lightly. The king lived in luxury beyond imagining, surrounded by servants, fine clothing, leisure, and wealth. But this was not seen as indulgence. It was compensation for responsibility. If the king failed to uphold Ma'at, famine, chaos, and disaster would follow. Comfort was not excess. It was necessity. Hunting scenes carved into stone depict kings slaying lions and wild beasts, though these hunts were often carefully controlled affairs, with animals captured and placed in preserves beforehand. The image mattered more than the danger. Kings were symbols as much as men. The court lived well too, though their fortunes depended on favor, geography, and luck. A regional governor overseeing a wealthy or sacred district might live in splendor, another in a more modest home. Even among elites, security was not guaranteed. Scribes occupied a special place in society. They were believed to be chosen by Thoth, god of writing and wisdom, entrusted with the power to make moments permanent. To write something was not merely to record it, it was to give it existence beyond time. Words mattered profoundly. What was written endured. Scribes knew that their work was read not only by future generations, but by the gods themselves, preserved in divine libraries maintained by Seshat, goddess of memory. Through writing, a scribe achieved a form of immortality. Most scribes were men, but women also practiced the profession and lived comfortably by its rewards. Education was the gateway to a good life, and literature encouraged young people to pursue learning as the surest path to happiness. Priests were scribes by necessity. Doctors were priests by training. Medicine in Egypt was inseparable from religion. Disease was often understood as divine instruction or imbalance, rather than random misfortune. To heal the body, one needed knowledge of gods, spirits, rituals, and remedies alike. Surgery, dentistry, bone setting, and pharmacology existed alongside prayer and incantation, without contradiction. Women practiced medicine freely, and Egyptian women enjoyed rights unmatched in most of the ancient world. They could own property, initiate divorce, enter contracts, run businesses, and control their own wealth. At least 4 women ruled Egypt outright, their authority unquestioned by law. Marriage was practical rather than ceremonial, often arranged early in life. Yet within marriage, women were respected partners, legally and socially equal, even if the man was considered head of the household. Affection, companionship, and shared leisure were common. For farmers and laborers, the majority, life was demanding but not joyless. They worked land they did not own, gave most of their harvest away, and lived in modest mud brick homes with few possessions. Yet they gardened, raised families, bathed frequently, shaved their heads, wore makeup, told stories, and celebrated festivals with enthusiasm. They brewed beer, deeply important beer, consumed daily and given as wages. Workers at Giza received beer 3 times a day. Gods presided over brewing. Cleopatra's popularity famously collapsed when she taxed it. Sports filled free time: swimming, wrestling, rowing, archery, board games, even dangerous water games on the Nile. music and dance were everywhere. Life was meant to be experienced fully. Festivals punctuated the year endlessly. Religious, personal, communal, all marked by food, drink, music, and excess carefully bounded by tradition. At some festivals, modesty was optional. Joy was mandatory. Clothing was simple, functional, and expressive. Linen kilts, dresses, shawls. Most people went barefoot unless necessity demanded otherwise. Sandals, when worn, became symbols of success. Cleanliness mattered. Appearance mattered. Joy mattered. And when death came, as it always did, it was approached not with terror, but preparation. Burial was essential, not as an end, but as a transition. Without proper rites, one could not move forward. Without remembrance, one might return, restless and offended. The dead were honored not for dying, but for living. Because in the end, everything in Egyptian life pointed toward a single goal: to create a life so well lived, so balanced, so full of meaning, that it deserved to be lived again, forever. And that belief, more than pyramids or gold or gods carved in stone, is the true legacy of ancient Egypt.